Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Friendly Conversation. And here with me is S.J. Thomason. S.J., how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it very much. So if you could tell everyone about yourself.
Okay. Hi, I'm S.J. Thomason. I'm from Florida. I teach at a university in business management. Oops, I got this on the screen up. Hold on. I teach in business management, and I've come to Christianity a while ago. So I was born and raised a Catholic, and then I left the Catholic faith for probably about 20 years, and I investigated all of these different faiths and Eastern faiths and that sort of thing. And then around 2012, I started having spiritual experiences, and I came back to Jesus. And so that's where I am. And so then I got onto Twitter a while ago in 2014, and I sort of got discovered by a lot of different atheists and Christians and kind of built up a community of both. And so it's been pretty nice.
That's awesome. And it's funny. I'm glad you're doing this with me, because I was warned so many times, like, be careful. SJ's a shark. She's going to get you. She's just waiting. I'm like, I have not had that experience. You invited me onto your show, and we talked about hot dogs. Like, we had to me, a good conversation. We still touched on, religious topics, but to me, I'd rather build a bridge, Stephanie, than sit here and, point fingers about who's right and who's wrong. And
I agree.
And, to me, if you and I can have a productive conversation, we can make real progress and start moving forward. Because if we just sit here and tell each other that the other person is wrong, they're just getting their ideas reinforced, and we're not actually making progress. So I like to make bridges rather than burn them. That's where I stand.
Yeah,
and
that's a great way to be.
And it sounds like you're trying to do something similar at this point. Like you're okay, you're open to talking to most people, from everything I can tell.
Yes, I am. I've had atheists, Christians, I've had Satanists, I've had all kinds of people, agnostics, people of different stripes definitely coming on my channel. So I've tried to build bridges with all of them. And I think I don't have any conversations that I would be embarrassed about on my channel, but maybe on someone else's. The one you brought up initially here.
Yes. So your first, from my understanding, your first introduction into debating was a call to the Atheist Experience with Matt Dillahunty.
Yes.
Is that correct? That was like your first encounter?
I have advice for aspiring Christians, and you don't, here's what you don't do. How do they say? You don't make your debut on the market by calling Matt Dillahunty on the Atheist Experience, because I called him and I had this huge chip on my shoulder, and I decided I was going to really tell him. I was going to tell him about why were the apostles so brave and all that kind of stuff with Jesus, and why did they do what they did. And I said, why did they come out of hiding? He said, because they were hungry. Maybe they wanted to get a sandwich. And then they were all laughing. And then he said something like, you're just wasting my time. And I said, of course I'm wasting your time. And then he hung up on me. It was horrible.
He's hung up on a lot of people.
Yeah, it's horrible. And that was 3 years ago. And I haven't lived it down since. I mean, it's had 500,000 views.
Oh, wow.
And that's just on one channel that's not even on the original Atheist Experience channel. So I don't even know, maybe all together is 1 million views. But so everyone remembers me as the crazy lady who called. So yeah, that's it. So don't do that. If you're out there, Christians, and actually the funny thing is atheists convinced me to call him, and I trusted them. I thought it was going to work out well.
Yeah. See, I don't like when atheists do that. Like, don't direct someone to have their first call be to Matt Dillahunty. That's like heavyweight status. You don't send someone that's new to this arena like, hey, go talk to Matt, because he knows what he's doing. He's experienced. So it kind of sucks that they would just immediately direct you to him rather than trying to find you someone to converse with first. So I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah, well, it's my fault too. I could have done my homework a little bit better. I watched his show and I thought I was going to be the one who was really going to make a difference.
I think that's why people call in. They're like, wait, I got it. I'm going to stump him. And then it doesn't happen.
No, because he has the ability to mute. He also muted me. So he was muting me.
He does that too.
Yeah, so it was not good. And then and after that, though, I have to say I've gotten on a lot of people's channels, and I've gotten on a lot of whether they're atheists or whatever they are, whatever the background is, and it's always worked out pretty well since, except for maybe one exception of one guy who was kind of obnoxious. But other than that, it's been pretty good.
So you've had more positive experiences since then.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. I just had Dr. Josh, I think he's agnostic on my channel just recently. I've talked to people like Adam Friended. I like him, Steve McCrae. There's a whole bunch of kind of famous atheists out there, and I've talked to a lot of them. That's
awesome. So how do you think we can avoid how do you think we can better build bridges between Christians and atheists? Like, I know this is a good starting point, but what do you think's the best way we can start moving forward and bringing other people who disagree to the table?
Yeah, I think your forum, this idea that you're doing is really good. And I like your roundtable idea. I think that's going to work out nicely. I think a lot of times when it turns into a we versus they or an us versus them, that's when the dynamic is off, because people dig in their heels and they try to only take their position and not listen to anything the other side has to say. So I think the debates might not be the most effective way in a lot of cases. If you're not a very good debater, it might not be a good way to go, because people will take your side anyway, but a lot of them just take the side of whichever person represents their views. And so the better way probably is doing conversations and developing friendships and trust.
Yes.
And so once you have that, that's good.
Yes, because then that's, again, when you, to your point, when you trust somebody, you're more likely to listen to what they have to say, especially if you respect that person. So that's where I'm at. I'd rather build that relationship first and then talk about the ideas later on, because again, that's when, I don't want to say people drop their guard, but they just become more receptive to what you have to say.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. And you and I, and you could even try to figure out what commonalities we have. So like you and I both come from the Chicago area.
Yes.
So,
and we both don't put ketchup on hot dogs.
Never. Only mustard. I only put mustard on my hot dog. It's I don't really eat hot dogs that often, but when I do, it's mustard.
Yeah, if you're not from Chicago, just know you can never put ketchup on a hot dog. It's just, you don't do it. So my first experience into apologetics was, I don't want to say similar to yours, because it wasn't like a Matt Dillahunty type person, but it was against a presuppositionalist. So on the flip side, I would never advise any atheist for their first debate to go against a presuppositionalist, because I was like a deer in headlights. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know where to go. It was intense. So I can understand why that would be difficult.
Yeah, if you go on there with somebody who's skilled at debating, like someone like Saitan Bruggencate, have you heard of him?
Yes, I've heard of him. I would never debate him ever.
Yeah, if you go on with somebody like him, or even, I would have to say, even what's that guy's name? Kent Hovind. Have you seen Kent Hovind? I've heard of him.
I wouldn't do that either.
Like, they have these debates that they've been doing for decades, pretty much. And so they have it all put together. They know exactly what their package is going to be. And people pretty much hear the same sort of words over and over and over. And so that would be a tough one. I wouldn't debate those two.
Oh, you wouldn't either?
No, because I don't agree with their views. I don't agree with Calvinism for Cy, and I don't agree with the young earth creationism with his Kent Hovind. So those would be topics I'd debate, but I wouldn't debate them. And I don't actually think it's a good idea for Christians to have inner fighting, because I think that entertains atheists too much.
No, that's true. But at the same time, that's how we can work together. With, like, you and me seem to have a lot. We both seem to have fairly progressive views outside of religion, at least based on our previous conversation.
Yes. I'd say, for example, politically, I'm a moderate. So I'm a registered Democrat, because I tend to agree with a lot of the things the Democrats have come up with. But lately, I have to say, I don't really like what the Democrats have. Nancy Pelosi, I don't really like some of the things they're doing. And so I've decided just picking the person now instead of picking the party.
Yes, that's what we need to do. We need to pick the person, not just focus on this left or right mentality. Like, we need to find middle ground and elect other people.
Exactly. And somebody who's moderate, I think if you're moderate and you're willing to at least look at both sides of an argument, don't just read the Wall Street Journal. That's all the red stuff, or don't just read the New York Times. You have to try to learn the other person's side. You know, what I do in my classes to do this kind of thing is I do these mock debates, and I'll force students to, I'll say, if you're on this side of the class, you're taking this position. And if you're on that side, you're taking this position. And whatever the topic is, like telecommuting, should we all have telecommuting? And now we obviously are, but we'll have something like that. And that helps them because they have to strengthen their own views on something by understanding the other person's side.
Right.
If it's not their side.
How, if you don't mind my asking, have you always been a Democrat, or were you ever a Republican?
No, I was raised a Republican.
Same.
And yeah, I was, in fact, I was a huge Reagan fan. So I loved Ronald Reagan. I thought he was just the best. I liked George Bush Sr. Then all of a sudden, I didn't really like George Bush Jr. And I didn't really like, who else didn't I like? And I just tend not to, I tend not to agree with some of the views that he has. Donald Trump, he's sort of a loose cannon.
We agree there.
But my husband likes Donald Trump, and my husband is a Republican, and he comes from a big Republican family. But my parents, actually, interestingly, they were they were Republicans, and my grandfather was Republican. And then they also, when we all left the Catholic Church, with the exception of my sister, they became they're almost like far leftists. They love Bernie Sanders. Well, my mom loves Bernie Sanders. And my mom actually called. She was on the telephone making calls for Bernie Sanders. and my dad is kind of, he like Klobuchar. I don't know about Biden. He thinks Biden's okay because he's moderate, but that's where they are now. So now I've kind of gone past. I went with them that way, and now I'm back in the middle. So
yeah, it's in right now in this climate, it's so divided, and it's incredibly hard to decide really who you should vote for, because it seems like our choices are just not good. Like we don't have any human being that I would be like, yeah, I want that person to be my neighbor. Like, that's who I want to be president. Someone who I can live next door to, you know, someone who, I don't know, puts humanist qualities first.
Yeah, I liked, you know, if I had to pick a Republican right now, I think Mitt Romney would be a dream, as would John Kasich. And if I had to pick a Democrat, I think Klobuchar was okay. The only thing with Biden that I'm concerned about is he is old, and he seems like he's making a lot of gaffes. And so
with his comment earlier about you're not, I don't want to take it out of context, but if you don't vote for me, you're not black. Is that what he said? And it's like, whoa, like, wait, what?
Yes, that's what he said. I was like, what is he thinking? I mean, where are his people? you know, he's in his basement right now saying these crazy things. He somehow needs something, because a lot of people, actually, what I heard with Ben Shapiro saying that I thought was funny was Ben Shapiro said, Biden, if he just stay in his house and not come out, he can probably win the election, but he keeps coming out. He keeps coming out. And it's like saying something kind of ridiculous and then going back.
Yeah, that's about right. Jumping back a little bit, where do you think people got this? You got this scary reputation. Do you think it started with the Matt Dillahunty call, or do you think is there anything else that's led to this? You know, watch out, she's a shark, she's going to get you. And I'm like, not really. She's nothing but a very nice person. I've not had any negative experiences. Like, where do you think that comes from?
I think there have been a couple of times when I've gotten on atheist channels, or I've gotten in some debates. I don't know if people think, sometimes I think I've done kind of well in the debates of late. Like, I thought I did pretty well in the last few debates I was in. And so that might be some of it, or it could be every once in a while I've been on somebody's channel when they start really diving into, say, Jesus, and I've got a lot of responses if they want to go down that path. I think I went on Nathan Orman's channel. I think I might have made him feel a little uncomfortable going down that path, because I think he started it. So, but I won't do it I won't do it to you, because you're brand new, and I'm not going to, I'm not going to start saying, hey, why do you think this? Or why do you think that? I'm not going to do that, because I think you are content with your position. And I don't think that you're really terribly interested in why I'm a Christian anyway. I think you're more interested in bridging and building a friendship. And so.
Yes. So I guess you could say, yeah, my primary goal, I would much rather build a friendship first. But I do want to know, why you are a Christian, what got you there. So talking about that stuff, I do love talking, because I'd like to know, like, if there is, if you have convincing evidence for God or Christianity, hey, I'm on board. I'll take the truth wherever it leads me. So yeah, I mean, anything you ever want to say on that topic, you're always welcome to.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll just say what led me in the first place was my personal experiences. And that's one of the reasons I got on Twitter. I thought, oh, wow, I've had these amazing spiritual experiences. I'm going to tell everybody and they're all going to believe me.
Yeah, it's not that easy.
Yeah, so they didn't. So they were like, yeah, right. And I said, well, so then I had these fiction books, these little fiction, like young adult Christian books. And so I was telling people, so that was another reason I was on Twitter. I was trying to get attention brought to those free books. They were free. And so I had these little books and I said, well, you can read my fiction book. And they start laughing like, fiction, haha, it's Christianity. And then apparently, I mean, I could have written the books better. They weren't the best books. I probably could have I'm not very good at fiction. I realize that because that's not my academic field. And so then I thought, okay, I was debating a bunch of atheists online. I used to spend lots of time online debating. Now I pretty much ignore most people on Twitter because
sometimes you have to.
Yeah, they just start coming at you. I just don't have enough time to do that. So I used to though. And then this one atheist called Atheist Engineer wrote this blog, and I read it and I thought, oh my gosh, I can totally refute this, because I started reading these apologetics books. So I wrote him a response called A Christian Response to Atheism, and I put it up on my blog. And now I've got about 200 articles on my blog that are lots of responses to lots of atheists. And so, I responded I used to go around and find atheist articles and respond and then I decided I'd find atheist books and respond. So I've responded to Bart Ehrman and Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and who else? Matt Dillahunty. I responded to some of his videos, responded to Tracy Harris, Aaron Ra, Richard Carrier.
Oh, wow.
I had some free time.
See, I always get nervous about two things: response videos and, written debates, just because I don't think I've ever seen two people on Facebook be like, I understand your point there. Like, it seems like, or Facebook or anywhere, it's like people just yelling at each other. And that's why I personally don't like engaging in like those Twitter feuds. Just because I don't know, I haven't seen it accomplish anything. Whereas to me, what you and I are doing right now is one of the most important things to do. Like, try and build a community where everybody feels welcome and everybody wants to share their ideas.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think you're making a really wise move by not getting involved in Twitter feuds, because that's because the other side of that Twitter feud is it doesn't show your true self in a lot of cases, because it shows what you write, but it doesn't show the context, obviously, because they can't see you. And the faces you're making while you're writing. Sometimes you're thinking you're joking around and people don't take it as a joke and they get offended. Right. And I'll tell you, let me tell you about a tweet I did. The most popular tweet I've had, not in a good way.
Uh-oh.
So somebody was saying something on Twitter and I was reading it and I thought to myself, I'm just going to say something kind of edgy. So I write, Christianity cures depression. And I start cracking up and I'm tweeting it out.
Oh.
And it had something like, I don't remember, 400 or 500 responses to this silly tweet. It does not. People were making videos about why I'm so wrong and I shouldn't be doling out mental advice or medical advice. I'm sorry.
That's a sticky slope.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh, and then they're saying, why are you telling people to get off depression medication? I said, I never said anything of the sort.
They started putting words in your mouth.
Yeah. And all this. And so then I decided, okay, I'm not going to tweet that out. That was a one-time tweet. And so, but I said to somebody said, I want to stir a little activity up. I said, just go say Christianity cures depression, see what happens.
Yeah, I would. So I will say, I think that would bother me too, if someone said that to me. Although I did have someone say something, I won't touch base on that, but like I'm not relating it to Christianity in any way, but I was a Christian through the majority of my depression. And I'm not saying those two are tied together, but now when my health improved, I did become an atheist, and not that those two things were correlated either, but mentally I felt this huge relief. And I wish I had a good way to articulate it, but I don't know. I hope I just became a better person. I became more interested in helping the people around me than, than judging them for their misfortunes. So yeah, I don't know. It's really done a lot for me, and it's gotten me to a point where I can understand where other people are coming from better.
Yeah. Well, see, I kind of did the opposite. I feel like I never have been, I mean, I'm not a depressed person. I don't have depression. I haven't ever been diagnosed with depression or anything like that. I tend to be an optimist in a lot of ways, but I feel like my life has improved much more. And I feel like I'm a much nicer person than I used to be. So
that's good.
I do feel like it's working out in a positive way. And that's the thing. When I said that, it was like half as it, because I was responding to somebody, and I'm forgetting what the context was, but I realize how it could be taken the wrong way. And I realize that someone who has clinical depression, I feel very badly for them. I've got some relatives who have that, and I know it's really hard to get through time sometimes. You don't feel like getting out of bed. And so I certainly wouldn't tell them to get help whatever way they can. So whether it's going to a psychiatrist or taking certain medicine or whatever it is.
Oh, good. We're on the same page there. What do you think is the biggest gap right now between getting atheists and Christians to have better dialogue?
I think the biggest one is if the atheist is honest and treats the person right. I think that's the best way to do it. But if you see, there are a lot of them who aren't doing the right thing by others, and they're misrepresenting other people, or they're doing things to try to trash people's reputations or calling their workplaces. I've seen that, and unfortunately, I've heard that some Christians have done that to atheists too. So this goes both ways. But those personal attacks and that kind of thing, once you do that, whichever side you're on, you're representing your group in a bad way. And so I think if people just start acting as if they knew these people in real life, and you're on here with your real name. I'm assuming your name's Ethan. So yes. You're on here with your real name. I use my real name, but there are a lot of what do you call it, keyboard warriors who are sitting online who just say the nastiest things to people. And then they get mad when they face the consequences, like somebody blocks them. So I've got about 700 people blocked on Twitter.
Really?
I'm not kidding. No, I actually do.
Wow.
And it's because I used to block and unblock. Like I used to think, okay, I'll block, I'll get upset, and then I'll wait a few months, let the comment, I'll forgive them. I can still forgive them, but I might still block people. And I block people if they're going to show up. I block them because I've had people contact my workplace a number of times, and so and try to get me fired. So that's a good reason to get a block. And if you're associated with that person, or you start coming down a line and just start name calling, you're getting blocked. And so that's my policy. And I don't unblock really that much anymore. People can go and find out if you own a house. People can find where you live. They can find where you work. They can drive up to your house. They can pull all of your legal data. If you've got any sort of court documents or anything like that, all of that stuff's public. Somebody has a DUI from 1995, that's going to show up. And they're going to use it against you. I've noticed that there are people online who dig up people's criminal records or whatever it is, and they use it against them. And I've seen it time and again. And so I'm glad I don't have a record.
Right.
That works out well, because otherwise I'm sure I'd have people pulling up my stuff and throwing it at me. So.
Well, see, and at the same time, like, I guess that goes to why I don't like cancel culture is, I don't know. I'll put my business out there. Like, look at my history. I don't care. This is who I was before. This is who I'm trying to be. Like, I mean, we all make mistakes, Stephanie. Like, we shouldn't be judging people off little things they did in the past or little things they said.
I agree.
For example, if you go back to my Facebook 4 to 6 years ago, you will see some very hard line right-wing stuff where I didn't even know what I was saying. I was just blurting crap out. Like, I would make comments like, oh, if you're on unemployment, you're lazy. Like, I was that person that made, and I'm ashamed of that, but I'm not going to hide it. And we shouldn't cancel or go after people simply for mistakes they made.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and that speaks to the idea of not going and digging around somebody's background and digging around all their websites and doing that thing is trying to misrepresent them. You know, I'll just give you another example. Somebody did this to me just recently. Is they took one of my videos and they spliced it all up, and just to make me look as bad as possible, and then they put it out there as if it was one of the videos where I didn't appear in my person. I mean, my face didn't appear, so. They were able to slice it up and make it sound like I'm, pro-Nazi, which is completely ridiculous.
Are you serious?
Yeah, yeah. And so then they said that I was saying that God wanted to have the Nazis do what they did because I wanted Israel to form. Now, that's exactly what I did not say. And I had a long explanation of what my whole theory was on this whole issue. And so they just spliced it all up and made a video. And then they're like, I can't believe you'd say that. And so I went to look at the video and I thought, this is ridiculous. So I went and found the original video. And I said, why don't you listen to it, start 87 minutes and listen to this and realize that you pulled stuff out from the 45-minute mark and you inserted it and you cut out a bunch of what I said. And see, people are, I mean, if they can't find anything that's on you, dirt on you, they'll make it up. So that's what they've been doing. That's one group of fans.
Well, I assure you, if any atheist ever attacks you or tries to manipulate your work, send them my way. I'll deal with them. Like I do not, like, atheists, do not give us a bad name. You want to attack someone's argument, attack their argument. Do not attack them as a person. There's no need for that. Exactly.
And you build a lot more credibility with Christians if you just act like yourself, act like you know the person, they're your neighbor.
Yes.
Don't act like, like if I saw you and we wanted to go have a hot dog or something sometime, that'd be fine. Chicago. So
as long as there's no ketchup.
yeah, exactly. So, or pizza, like that Inside Out pizza, Connie's.
Yes.
So that would be great. But I'm just saying that I wouldn't, the nice thing is when we do show our faces and we are our real selves, basically, we're out here projecting and representing ourselves as best we can. Then if we did bump into people anywhere in the country, if you're flying around and you happen to see somebody in the airport and you realize, hey, wait a second, that person was on YouTube, or I know that person. You could go up to them and say hi, and you don't have to feel embarrassed about some silly thing that you said or did to somebody else.
No, I agreed.
Yeah.
Are there any mistakes you think, going back to the dialogue, are there any mistakes you think Christians make that they need to stop making when encountering atheists?
Yeah, and I'll name my own. So when I first got online, here's my story. So I first get online in 2014. Actually, I first signed up account 2010, but I didn't touch it for like 4 years. And then I get online in 2014. Right around 2015, I started doing hashtag Christianity, and a lot of atheists found me, and I thought, this is strange. I really don't know that many atheists. I knew of an atheist relative of my husband's who passed away, unfortunately. But then I know of atheists, but I didn't really have any friends that I knew of, at least who said they were atheists. And so at this point, now my brother has since told me he's agnostic, but I didn't know that then. And actually 2 sisters-in-law now have told me they're agnostic too, and I didn't know that then. But
wow.
Yeah. So
we're surrounding you.
yeah, that's what's funny. But the thing is, I didn't know, and I thought it was kind of funny when all these atheists started kind of coming at me on Twitter. So I started saying things that were alluding to them being very hot one day, and it was dumb. So don't use the hellfire and brimstone is my bottom line, because that's not going to go anywhere. And so I know, like Ray Comfort, people like him, they get out there and that's what they preach. You don't want to go to hell. You don't want to do that. I don't think the stick is the way to work it. The carrot's a little better, if anything, or just intrinsic motivation. So.
See, and I can understand why atheists get upset by being told they're going to hell, because many suffered through their own religious traumas and nightmares. But I am fortunate that never really bothered me. Like, I did have a fear of death at one point. But like, I asked the apologist I was talking to, and at the end I was like, so on my path right now, am I going to hell? And he said yes. And it doesn't bother me at all. Like, if that's your opinion, great. But I guess that makes me, I guess I need to understand my own privilege there, because I'm fortunate enough for it not to affect me as it does affect many other people.
Yeah. I think that's obviously a big question. You want to figure out the the whole purpose of your life, or what's it all going to mean? Does it have a higher meaning? Is there that sort of thing? And so those are really big questions. And so you kind of have to figure out, what do you want?
Right.
Would you want to go to heaven is another question. God doesn't force its inhabitants to be there. So the question is if you'd actually want to go there. And some atheists have told me, they say, I really don't want to go there. I don't want to be any part of that. I don't want to have to worship God. I want nothing like that. And so they're very comfortable making the decision that they made. So
I guess that's a complex question to answer. Personally, I couldn't go to heaven if I knew anybody going to hell. Like, to me, I don't want anybody to be tortured ever. Or I guess, sorry, it depends how you define hell. But I don't want anyone to suffer eternal torment. I just want everyone to be happy. So if the cost of going to heaven was knowing people are in hell, then I couldn't accept that. Like, that would be hard for me.
Yeah, I think you do, like you said, you do have to define what hell is. And the definitions are pretty much in the Bible as far as our description of what the Christian perspective on hell. And I actually had Randall Rouser on my station not too long ago, and he's kind of got an interesting perspective of people will be destroyed essentially at their will when they want to. That's his view. He doesn't think that they're going to be eternally tormented. He thinks it's actually going to be at Judgment Day. Then basically some will be destroyed at that point, and then some won't. And so that's his view. And then other people say, no, you're going to be eternally in torment, hellfire, brimstone, all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of a scary thing that I never even, before I got on Twitter, I never ever thought about hell. That was just the last thing in my mind. And so it's interesting.
So what do you, because I've also heard that hell is just eternal, I don't want to misquote my friend, eternal separation from God or eternal absence from God. So how do you define hell?
That's exactly how I define it. So I feel that hell would be, here's what I feel. I feel we're on the earth right now, and I feel like we're being, there's day and night. Here's kind of interesting, because when you get to heaven, apparently it's only going to be day. We're only going to be surrounded by light, and it won't even be the sun. It'll be the light of God, essentially. But, and they say there's no night in heaven, which is interesting. So there's this split here on the earth where there's day and night, dark and light. And I believe that hell would be eternal darkness, and it would also be eternal torment just without God. But actually that's not hell. That's Hades. Hades is going to be temporary, I should say, temporary darkness, temporary torment. Then you go to the final judgment day, everyone's judged. And then if your name's in the Lamb's Book of Life, as they say, then you'd end up in either heaven or not in heaven. And so the not in heaven idea is just the consequences are eternal. So even if you're destroyed at that point, the consequences are eternal. Okay.
That would suck. That would really suck. I'll just say that.
Yeah. But it's not, the other side is, what do people want? Do you want to go? I mean, I really think that that's the important thing, because if you feel like God is just is like a father figure, and if you aren't comfortable with, or you don't like the idea of authority, I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. And I think that's one of the reasons why some people, at least, have chosen that even if there is a God, they would not want to worship him. So that's
I guess, yeah. So earlier today, I was asked, I think are you familiar with Dean Meadows?
How do I know that name? I know that name somehow.
He actually, he's like kind of bounces around between the atheist and Christian community. Like everyone speaks very, very highly of him, even within the atheist community, even though they say, like, I don't agree with him, but man, he's a super nice guy. Anyway, he asked me today, okay, we've known each other for a while. What would it take to get you back to Christianity? And I immediately told him, like, you can ask me anything. You don't have to wait a while. Like, I don't get upset by questions. And I answered it the best I could. And let me know what you think of this answer. Or if maybe I could be missing something. I said, first, you would have to, prove to me that God exists. Then you would have to prove to me that your specific God exists. Then you'd have to show me that Jesus exists and Jesus was indeed the Son of God. And then if I accepted all that, I still wouldn't see a reason to worship, because to me, I don't see a reason why I should worship anybody or anything. Like, I just want to treat everyone as equals. Um, I don't. How would you respond to that, or what do you think I'm missing?
So I think your deductive argument, essentially, that's a deductive argument that you would be making, because first you'd look at the general. If somebody can convince you that God exists, then you'd go down to the specific of which form of God. And then you say, well, and would you want to worship God if you found out God exists? And that's the honest question. If you ask somebody, say, would you worship God if you found out God exists? And they say no, well, then you might not want to even continue the conversation, because the person probably isn't terribly open to the idea of God. But if the person says, yes, I want to know the truth, and I will live with the consequences of that truth, then you maybe can start a conversation and discuss the evidence that we have to support both God existing and Jesus existing. So.
Oh yeah, no, I'm totally, like, as I've always said, I want the truth wherever it leads, and I'll follow it as best as I can. I just always, I always had an issue with even when I was a Christian, I did pray, I did talk to God. I went to a Catholic junior high. The only area where I personally struggled with was that worship. And I think that's why many of my friends would say I wasn't a true Christian, because I couldn't get my mind around the worship.
Yeah, no, that's a challenge if you have that. So that's and actually you and I, then we both had the Catholic schooling experience. And I told you I did spend a lot of time when I was praying, and there was about a 20-year period when I had pretty much left the Catholic Church. I mean, I'll say I'll go back and forth sometimes to the church, but I was thinking that the Eastern faiths were much more superior, but I wanted to know the truth. And I wasn't even sure if Jesus rose from the dead, but I still wanted to know the truth. And I started praying, and it wasn't till, again, 2012, later in my years, when finally I felt like God was really showing himself and making himself very evident in my life. So that's the point when I did a turnaround, and it wasn't based on apologetics. So that's the thing. I tell people apologetics and that sort of thing, but I don't think apologetics is what brings people back to God. I think Jesus has to bring you back if you want to go.
Right. What do you think would bring me back? Like, do you think there is, I guess in your experience in meeting me, what do you think would get me on that path?
Jesus. I really don't, like, I could sit here and go through all the arguments, and I know Puck told you a lot of the apologetics arguments. So you guys were going through a whole bunch of them. I could do that, but that's probably not going to bring you back. I think it's got to be something that's going to not speak to necessarily the logical arguments. It's going to look at your emotions, and and Jesus actually personally going in there and making an impact. I think that would definitely bring you back. And I've seen people who've left and have come back. There's a guy on Twitter I interact with who I used to fight with him all the time. He was an atheist, and he was completely sure to himself that there was no God, and he was fighting with me daily. And then all of a sudden, he disappeared for a while, and then he comes back, and now he's a full-blown Christian.
Wow.
So yeah, and it was funny when he was starting to wobble around a little bit about it, and I could tell, because one time he sent me a direct message, and I was reading it, and I thought, there's much more to this guy than I knew, because on the surface, he seemed one way, but he was much deeper as far as what he was putting in these messages. And so I thought, and then all of a sudden he disappears, and he comes back with a different screen name. It's big Christian now. So.
Wow. See, I had a funny experience. When I was a Christian, I had a close friend who was an atheist, but he was that in-your-face angry one, but I wouldn't consider him the most intelligent one. Sorry, that was mean. I shouldn't say that. But he was not a good critical thinker when he was an atheist, because he would just constantly get in your face, tell Christians how, like, just swear, lash out, but he could never really explain his position. And now on the flip side, I'm the atheist and he's the Christian.
Oh, really?
Yes. And
wow.
Unfortunately, we stopped talking, which could be 100% on me, because I went through that militant atheist phase where I was just so angry, and I was just launching nuclear bombs at every Christian I knew. And it was as much as I regret it and I'm ashamed of my behavior, I'm still glad it happened, because it taught me valuable lessons.
Yeah, it teaches you what not to do.
Yes,
so we all need those lessons. Hey, I've got Craig. Craig Reed was on my channel today, and he's in your audience. He says, tell him to watch Craig Reed videos. That'll do it.
All right, Craig, send me a video for your best argument for God, for Christianity, and I will happily watch it.
Hey, can I do that too?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Okay.
please.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I would encourage. Okay. Question from Vila Bianca. Must ask: are emotions a good way to determine truth?
Yeah, correct. Emotion's a good way to determine truth. I think emotions can help you to see the truth sometimes. Yes, I think sometimes the idea of persuasion, if you go back to Aristotle and you look at this thing called ethos, pathos, and logos, it's basically establishing credibility, telling a story that elicits emotions, and then giving a logical argument. So if you take the combination of those, it can be pretty powerful as far as persuading people of a truth, of something that you find compelling. And so you wouldn't want to just totally rely on your emotions. On the flip side, though, emotions can deceive you sometimes. Suddenly you choke up over something and you accept something that maybe you wouldn't accept because you were too emotional. So you have to. There's like a fine line there.
How do you think we could determine, like, for instance, which emotion is helping lead to the truth and which emotion is not leading to the truth?
I think that any emotions that are associated with it's emotions associated with happiness, I think would help. Emotions associated with peace would help. If emotions associated with any sort of anger would not help. And so, in fact, I've even seen sadness there. One of the things that I'm getting this certificate right now with this nearby university that they were offering a free certificate. So I signed up. I'm like, sweet, free. I get a free leadership certificate. And one of the things that they said was people are when your creativity is at its least is when you're sad. And so you can see sadness is one of the most negative things. And so if you're sad or depressed or angry, those emotions will lead to the wrong outcomes.
So, yeah, I agree that they could lead to the wrong outcomes because I don't know. I can't speak to the truth that it would lead to. But, yeah, I mean, when I was sad and depressed and angry, it didn't really do anything for me. And I feel like I gained a better understanding of people. Well, I don't know. I don't even think I want to touch base on that.
Yeah, no, but just going back to this whole idea is if you're seeking for the truth, actually, I'll explain what I also meant to say. So if we go back and we look at different apologists that are out there and what sort of approaches they use, one of the things that a lot of them use, like William Lane Craig, is they try to use a logical argument and they come up with these syllogisms and they try to make a case doing that. And then there are other apologists when they do something like Ravi Zacharias, the late Ravi Zacharias, God bless him. but Ravi Zacharias he'd tell stories, and he had a whole bunch of stories that he would tell that could really speak to your heart. And I think that his approach might have even been better than Williams as far as possibly changing people's minds and letting them think about something much deeper and relate their story to whatever his story was.
Okay.
So
I want to address this. So Jonathan said a very weak, albeit cordial conversation. So Jonathan, that's what I'm trying to do. I would much rather bring people to the table, spread, atheism awareness, and focus on the conversation itself. And then hopefully people who are watching will have a more open mind. And then if people do have a more open mind, I can direct them to what I feel are better resources, like for breaking down these arguments like Talk Heathen, the Atheist Experience, or just people like Vila Bianca, Eric Murphy, Matt Dillahunty. I can direct them to what I feel are better resources to break down the things that I'm incapable of breaking down. But my goal is to just bring people to the table and have a conversation. So I apologize if it's weak. This is just the style I'd like to go with.
Yeah, I don't think it's weak. I think it's been pretty entertaining.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, come on. A Christian and atheist, we talk about hot dogs, we talk about pizza, while still sprinkling in, religion.
Yeah, and talk about Chicago.
Yes.
Talk about, Chicago. Now, actually, I forgot to ask you this. It's a very, very important question.
Uh-oh.
White Sox or Cubs?
Oh, no. I don't think I'll answer that on video, but okay. If I had to choose, now I'm not much of a sports fan, but if I had to choose, I would go with the Cubs.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Socks.
Yes.
Come on, Stephanie.
When I grew up, here's what happened. The Cubs used to only, and this is how I'll age myself, I don't care. The Cubs used to only play in the daytime, and my dad used to work, so we took us to the Sox games because they were at night in Comiskey Park, and it was Wrigley Field. I don't know what they're named now, but Wrigley Field's in Comiskey Park, and Wrigley Field was only open in the day.
Okay. I'm bad with, like, I would rather, like, I don't know. I feel like when I watch sports, I'm just wasting my time. Like, I would rather sit here and listen to either music or religious discussions and debates. Like, to me, I like to keep learning. So anytime watching sports takes time away from that for me.
Yeah. Well, I watch college football. That's pretty much it as far as sports.
Yeah, I don't know. I have trouble with sports. I couldn't, I'll play them. Like, I love playing sports. I just couldn't get into watching them.
Yeah.
But
basketball is kind of fun to watch too, come to think of it. My sons play basketball, so I like watching them play.
So here's a question that's been on my brain. How do we normalize religious discussions at the Thanksgiving dinner table? Because every year I see people, oh, my family, I'm so done with them. How do we stop that from happening?
Well, it has to be because you're speaking to somebody now who has 2 agnostic sisters-in-law and an agnostic brother. And I'll tell you how funny it is with my brother. So my brother he comes out of the closet one Christmas, and he lives in Germany most of the time, and he's over in Germany right now, but he came back down to Boca Raton, and we were all out there with my parents, and he comes out to me and he says, yeah, I'm an atheist, or I'm sorry, he says, I'm an agnostic. And I said, that's not a surprise, because I saw all the books he was reading. He brought back a bunch of books and he admires Sam Harris and all this stuff. And so I said, yeah, well, I'm not, obviously. And so then I had my little books that I was reading, and he was following me on Twitter. We were following each other. And then he decided he didn't like my Christian tweet. So he stopped following me and he blocked me.
But why?
So then I said, why don't you unblock me? I saw him in person. He said, oh yeah, I'll do that. And then he never does it. I don't think he's really on Twitter very much, but what's interesting is he and I, so when he first told me, we kind of got a little bit of an argument. And so I was trying to explain my side and he was trying to explain his side. And then we don't see each other for a while. And then we come back, and this past Christmas, he was following me all around the house, and he kept wanting to talk about God and Jesus and what evidence did I have and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, this is different. He never wanted to see it before necessarily. I would tell him to read this and do that, and he wouldn't do it. So it was kind of interesting. He was very curious. My 2 sisters-in-law, now these are the funny ones. So one of them is the sister, the wife of one of my brothers, and the other one is the wife of my husband's brother. And so the one who's the wife of my husband's brother said, she said, I don't really care if there's a God. and the one who's the wife of my brother, she came up to me and she's like, I used to believe in God, and I used to carry a Bible around and do all that kind of stuff. But she goes, I don't really want him to exist. So I'm like, why? Both of these 2 have the best. I mean, even my brother, they've got great dispositions, great lives, everything going for them. And I think, why not? And I don't know. I don't really get it, but but I think it should be, we're all very friendly with each other. I think people should never close doors on a family member because of that. I don't think that's the right thing to do. So
I agree.
You got to keep the lines of communication open. And I have heard of some atheists, actually. I've talked to atheists whose families have disowned them or told them they're not welcome anymore at Christmas or Thanksgiving. And I think that's pretty awful.
Yeah, that is. Like, you should welcome everybody as long as they're not hurting other people or actively trying to hurt other people, in my opinion.
Yeah. And they aren't. And I can tell you, they're both, great mom, great dad, that sort of thing. So great mom. Yeah, my brother's a great dad. He's got a little son, and he does a fantastic job. So it's one of those things.
do you find yourself in a position where you have to, like, block people often? Because for me, that's I've heard people say, oh, your stance on blocking people is going to change, because I don't block people, mainly because things they say to me don't bother me. And I've actually only had to block one person, and it was because they tagged me in a nude. And I was like, okay, I don't need that type of stuff. So I immediately blocked that. But other than that, I don't know. I don't personally like doing it, but I'm sure I'll live to eat my own words because that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself in a position where you have to block people often?
I haven't had to, well, I can't say that I have, I just did block somebody. But I don't really do it that often. I probably, the people who would probably bug me are the ones I've already blocked. And so now I don't have, the people who mainly show up on my timeline are pretty cordial. And so I haven't had need to block anybody with the exception of one person recently. So I don't think I've even blocked anybody in, maybe I have, I don't know. But I've tried to, the numbers are way down as far as how much I block. So,
good. So what do you, let the audience know what you're currently working on?
Oh, okay. So I'm working on a book called The Power of One. And so I write these little Christian books, and I'm writing them mainly for my family and friends. And I'm doing some research into the Talmud. So I'm looking at both the Babylonian and the Jerusalem Talmud. And I'm looking at some interesting things that the Jewish people thought around the years, anywhere between 300 and 500 after Christ. So I'm working on that. And I'm also working on some research for my school on some the topics of objective morality. And I'm looking at the dark triad of personality, like narcissism and psychopathy and Machiavellianism.
That would be a good, narcissism would be a good topic to cover.
Oh yeah, I've been collecting data on that. So I'm collecting data. Yeah. And so I want to see in one of my other studies, I found out people who have these narcissistic tendencies or psychopathic or Machiavellianism, that ties in with their ethical decision making in different, very interesting ways. And this time on this new study, I'm also going to look at how it relates to somebody's utilitarian ethics. So I'm looking at the people who value the greatest good for the greatest number of people and how that corresponds to these different personality characteristics and different values. And so that's where my research is. I look at that kind of stuff because I figure I teach human resource management and leadership, but in my HR classes, a lot of times we ask for good selection tools to pick the right employees. Mm-hmm. And so I figure if you screen them and find out that they have these pretty awful characteristics and they're likely to make unethical decisions, then you have a validated tool that you can use not to hire them.
And where can everyone check you out at? I did add your YouTube link to the video description. So if you do want to check SJ out, but is that the best way to see your content on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, my YouTube, or you can go to, I have a lot of blogs I've written. It's at christian-apologist.com. And in that site, you're also going to see, if you go to I think it's on the About page, you'll see how to reach me by email if you want to email me. That's at alwayslearning1225@gmail.com. Or you can go to Twitter at lead1225 on Twitter. So you can find me there too. So
awesome. What do you think? Do you think this was a productive conversation? I know we didn't hit any home runs on where our positions were, but what do you think? Do you think we're at a good starting place? Awesome. Yeah, I think it's a good conversation. And you're going this couple Wednesdays away. You're going to also be having a big roundtable, right? Yes, so I've got a few lined up, but I should have probably had that up on my schedule. I should have had the schedule up right here so I could have listed it. So on the let me just pull this up. Okay, so on the 3rd, I have the Women of Atheism Roundtable. On the 10th, I have just the overall Atheist Roundtable, and on the 17th, we have the Christian Atheist Roundtable, where we're going to have 3 Christians and 3 atheists, and we're going to try and find more common ground and see what we can all do to improve going forward, which I'm really excited about that one.
So let me ask you, which women atheists are you bringing on?
I should have had that ready. Give me
Oh, no, that's okay. Because I know a few of them. I know Godless Girl and Shannon Q. And I just had Godless Girl on my channel too, not too long ago. So Jen with one N, that's another atheist. So
so we've got Jenna Belk. I wish I had this in front of me. Cynthia McDonald, Sassy.
I think I've heard of Jenna Belk. Sassy Heathen. I saw Sassy Heathen in the chat.
Yep, she's going to be on. And I will have to have this ready next time. I'm still.
Oh, no worries. I kind of caught you off guard.
No, I should have had it ready. And I can tell you right now, Puck is in the comments face palming for me not having this ready.
Puck. Hey, Puck, good to see you. Yeah, we'll have to do another conversation on my channel too to get some of the same group back. And maybe we can do a roundtable on my channel and get you on there and get Puck on there again. and that same group that we have in the direct message on Twitter.
Yes,
So
Dr.
that'd be a lot of
Josh
fun.
too. Yeah, that'd be a
Dr.
blast.
Josh. Yeah, so that'd be definitely a good time.
Yeah, and then the following roundtable on the 10th. So far, we've got the Godless Engineer, Vila Bianca, and Kenneth Leonard. So I'm really excited about that one. That's going to be a really big one.
Now you have views that I don't know what your views are as far as Godless Engineer, but Godless Engineer thinks he's a Jesus mythicist. And are you a Jesus mythicist too?
I would like to say I don't know enough to take that position.
Okay. I was just curious because there could be some interesting conversations that you can get out of that.
No, I'm sure. So I am so new to this whole thing. Like while I've been an atheist for several years, I literally only listened to the Atheist Experience and then eventually Talk Heathen. So when like everyone starts throwing these names out, I'm like, I have no idea who these people are. Like, and I still have so much research to do, so much to learn, because I don't know much, and I'm open, and that's why I like doing these conversations, because I feel like every time I talk to someone is an opportunity to learn something new.
Yeah, I had Godless. I was just thinking of that. I've been on Godless Engineer's channel before. So,
oh, you have?
Yeah, he and I have very different views. And on his channel, I definitely was trying to convince people of Christianity on his channel. I did not hold anything back. I forgot about that.
So wait, are you holding back with me?
Well, I don't think, I think right now with you, I think that since you're pretty new on this whole thing, I think I'd rather let you take your time, get to know the water and that kind of thing. Godless Engineer's been doing this a long time. He deserved to get.
So wait, are you just being nice to me then because I'm new?
No, I'm not. I feel like that. I honestly, I don't feel like you've done the investigations yet that you really probably want to do before we talk about all that kind of stuff. Yeah, because you're going to want to you're going to want to know what all the arguments are on both sides and to know what the responses are, because that makes it more fun for you.
Oh, absolutely. Because I don't like feeling lost, and there are times with, as you saw in that video with Puck, he's laying these arguments out, and I'm like, wait, what? There's
a whole bunch of them. I mean, there's so many different arguments, but that's the thing. It's an argument, or you tell a story, or you do different things. But I think that if, I haven't been holding back. I just thought I thought the conversation for this purpose would be better just to have a nice, friendly discussion, as you said.
No, I appreciate that. Well, for future, you never have to hold back with me. Like you're not gonna. I'm serious. Like, the worst case that's going to happen is I'll say, hey, I don't know. I'll have to look more into that. I am not someone that gets thrown off by being attacked or someone trying to make me look stupid. Like it doesn't bother me. So
see, I would never do that. And I didn't do that to Godless Engineer either. That's definitely not my purpose to come on someone's channel and try to make that. I mean, that's just, I don't like when people try to do that to me. So why would I do that to somebody else?
No, agreed. So, well, SJ, I want to thank you for doing this, but don't disconnect just yet. If you could stay on the line just so we could chat after. Once again, everyone check out SJ's channel. It is in the comments, in the description. I just got my Patreon set up, so feel free to go to the link and let me know any mistakes I've made. I'm learning this on the go as quickly as possible. I'm just excited that I was able to get a custom YouTube URL name. Like that was like, ooh, yeah, now I'm good.
Yeah, that's great. What is your custom YouTube URL? I haven't seen it.
It is youtube.com/your friendly neighborhood atheists, plural. Unfortunately, the singular was not available. Although looking back, I wish I would have just done the YFN atheist. That would have been easier, but too late. Anyways,
that's all good.
Everyone, Stephanie, thanks again for doing this. Everyone, please like and subscribe and check out Stephanie's channel. And tomorrow at 6:30 p.m., Kenneth Leonard, 6:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time, Kenneth Leonard and Aaron Johnson are going to be grounding morality. So I'm looking forward to that. Everyone have a really good evening.